Welcome back to another A to Z of AV video with Command AV. Today we are looking at the letter
Q,
which stands for
quality. So quality, what do we mean by quality?
bear with beep
What do we mean by quality?
quality beep.
Okay, what do we mean by quality?
A variety of things: build, usability, experience, and then just the general reliability and versatility of equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of AV, we've sectioned this video into TVs, speakers, networks, control systems, cinema setups, and the install quality.
Or the labour you pay for, the expertise, the professionalism.
So let's look at TVs. How does quality affect TVs in our industry?
Generally, cheaper or lower priced TVs tend to have worse picture quality, worse sound quality, purely because they have worse quality speakers, and they also tend to lack a lot of third-party control enablement, or which doesn't allow for integration from control systems. And ultimately, the biggest thing that you'll notice between, say, a supermarket own brand TV and a top of the range Sony or Samsung or LG TV is the user interface and the overall user experience. It tends to go from being a laggy, blocky, sort of sometimes glitchy type of experience compared to, for instance, on the newer Sony TVs, the Android user interface is just a much cleaner, nicer and better to deal with environment. However, just because a TV is more expensive than a competitor does not mean that it can definitely be integrated with a control system and controlled, etc. Some TVs are still tricky in that respect, especially when it comes to certain TVs which have a standalone and external control box for all of the external inputs. That needs to go somewhere. It can't go in the space between, say, a TV and a flat wall bracket and the wall itself. It has a long cable between 5 and 15 meters, and it needs to sit somewhere, be it in a cabinet below, in the wall behind, in the room behind the room where the TV is installed. The manufacturers do supply an endless range of ideas of how you can install these external boxes, but it does make the install tricky. So tell me, you like speakers?
I do like speakers.
How's the quality of speakers affected?
So from the installation perspective, a lot of the cheaper end of speakers are tricky to install when compared to their more expensive counterparts, that is. So sometimes manufacturers don't think about, say you're doing an in-ceiling speaker, and you've got those tabs that are really difficult to push down whilst you're putting the cable in. Now if you're standing on a ladder and you've got to hold the speaker, push down the tabs, put the cable ends in that are really small and fiddly, that can be difficult when you've got awkwardly placed compression connectors.
I think from what you're describing, in instances like that, you'd be better off learning to ride the unicycle on a slackline. Okay, so tricky install aside, what about sound quality?
So there's a variety of ways in which the quality of a speaker is affected. The different materials used to make the cones, the frequency response of the speakers, the dispersion pattern, and the engineering behind the design of the speakers. Some speakers have open backs, some speakers have closed backs. Generally the closed back speakers will be more expensive, but you will notice the difference when you have a closed back speaker rather than an open back speaker, especially if you're in the bedroom above when someone's playing music down below, if you get me.
Boom boom.
Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about speakers. The next topic is control systems. Take it away.
So, control systems can essentially be divided into two sections. You've got your DIY systems, and then you've got your installer grade, built for purpose control systems. DIY control systems have a great appeal because you need very few devices and wires to make things work. For instance, Amazon Alexa and Google Home Assistant generally rely on Wi-Fi and other wireless connectivity like Zigbee, Z-Wave, etc. So that can make it very easy to set up, especially if you only have a few devices, like maybe a TV, maybe a wireless speaker, and maybe one or two light bulbs around the house.
Or those plug sockets.
Yeah, or Wi-Fi plug sockets. They're awesome for just wanting to turn on certain things. Or one example I've got is a cupboard light, cupboard under the stairs, which there's no light switch for it. So I just put a light in on the plug socket and put a Wi-Fi plug on there, and that gives me the ability to turn it off, turn it on or off wherever I need to. Plus it adds a physical switch to the room. One thing you'll notice with DIY systems is there's a lack of device support. So once you start growing or wanting to control a larger and growing system around your house, so multiple TVs, especially different TV brands, the sizes, types, etc., there is an apparent lack of support for these individual devices, to the point where you may then have to start adding third-party devices to have control over all of these devices, like little infrared emitter hubs, like the type of thing you would get with a Logitech Harmony system. One of the biggest complaints, especially from personal experience with some of these DIY systems, is the slower response, and occasionally there's a little bit of error as well, where if you pronounce, especially with voice control, if you pronounce something incorrectly, or if you miss a certain word somewhere, the wrong light or the wrong TV gets turned on or off, or nothing happens at all. That seems to be quite a frequent error.
Yeah, for example, I've recently just popped an Alexa in at home, quickly set it up, but it thinks I've got more TVs than I do, or it cannot control the TV itself but can control the plug socket that the TV is connected to. So when I ask it to turn the TV off, it's like the TV it's not responsive. But when I ask it to turn the TV in the lounge off, which is the only TV, it turns off the plug socket, and we don't really want that. So there's a little bit of jiggery pokery from a user perspective that you have to do, whereas with other products that we would specifically use, the user doesn't have to do any of that kind of thing. Which brings us on to the better quality products that we're trying to promote.
Built for purpose, installer grade control systems. Like I said, they are built for purpose. They are made to do one thing. They are made to control anything that they are connected to and integrated with. They are designed to give the best possible user interface and user experience. And to top it all off, they provide discrete control over probably 99% of devices that you would ever come across, really, especially TVs, amplifiers, heating controls, aircon units, blinds, lights, door locks, all sorts of actuators and sensors, etc.
Generally speaking, a control system that we would recommend can take anything that you throw at it, potentially. Whereas the DIY type, lower quality versions of these generally have a specific number of products that they can integrate with, and they're not as flexible, not as robust, not as versatile.
Yeah. And speaking of versatility, there is a great variety that comes with installer grade control systems. Some of them are actually the same price as some of the, let's say, the higher end DIY systems. If you just want to have control of a single room with a remote control, that can be done. Well, the equipment alone to do that isn't all that expensive.
The next topic we're going to speak about is networks. Now, it's quite a boring thing to think about. Most people have a BT home hub or their Sky router at home, and that generally does them. But how many of you out there have got problems, have got dead spots in your house, or you have slow speeds, or you're using some of those extenders, those Wi-Fi dongle things in your house that extend the Wi-Fi to different areas of your room, and you have problems with those? I know I've had experience with these at home, and they're horrible.
Yeah, well, I think you've just described all of the downfalls of a DIY Wi-Fi system, and generally the quality factor comes in the experience that comes with them, or the lack of experience, or the lack of quality experience. Because what tends to happen with DIY Wi-Fi systems, especially when using Wi-Fi repeaters and extenders and such, you don't get any active device management or handoff, etc. So for instance, if you've got a home hub in a room and you've got an extender in another room, etc., you move whilst an ongoing video call is on your phone or tablet, whatever, you move from one room to the next. One of two things is going to happen. Your device is either going to stay latched on to the original Wi-Fi device that it detected or was connected to, or it's going to abruptly cut off the connection and reinitiate the connection to the new device that's now in range. Either way, you either get a really laggy conversation or you just get a dropped call. With higher quality networking equipment, you have essentially a fully managed system where, especially with large areas of Wi-Fi coverage where you've got multiple Wi-Fi access points, the system can actively monitor all of the connected devices, and whenever it notices that a connection to an access point is getting weak but there's a stronger one available, it will actually reroute that connection without the device losing a connection. So a good example of this is in one previous project we worked on, a townhouse that spanned, is it 5 or 6 floors? Six floors, with Wi-Fi access points going all the way from the basement up to the, would that be the 4th floor? So basement, ground, and then 4 floors up. I had a video call going, starting at the basement, going all the way up to the top, and didn't drop signal once. And that's one of the main advantages, and that's one of the best qualities of having a managed network.
Now, I can't think of many reasons why you would have a video call and stand in the basement and go to the top floor. Correct.
I can.
However, what if, say, you're on a video call and you wanted to take it into the garden? External access points are something that we do quite often, because people want Wi-Fi in the gardens when you're having barbecues and whatever. So there is potential for that scenario to happen, and you wouldn't want to have a call dropped because you decided you wanted to go out because it's hot. You wanted to take the call outside.
So yeah, that doubles up the quality of experience you get with speed and coverage of a proper system compared to a BT home hub, or even worse, a Virgin Media super hub. There's nothing super about those hubs, I can guarantee you that. So we've covered TVs, speakers, control systems and networks. Cinemas. Now this is the fun part of AV.
Yeah. So in our last video, we spoke briefly about the quality of projectors and projection screens. So this one, we're going to talk about cinemas as a whole. So a cinema, what is a cinema for? What the main purpose of a home cinema?
To me, it is, you want to recreate that feeling of being in the Odeon. Massive screen, bright colours, high quality picture, loud, crisp, clear sound, full surround sound in front, to the side, back, above, and that boom boom bass you get from when there's action, gunshots, car crash, etc. Yeah.
Not only that, comfort. You want comfy seating, cup holders. You want decent lights. There's a whole host of things. Soundproofing, because you don't want to disturb the neighbours. There are many other things to consider when building a home cinema. Generally,
the quality associated with, say, a done-it-yourself cinema is maybe an underspec'd projector, where the zoom has been extended to its fullest range to get the biggest possible picture or the longest possible throw, or in some cases the shortest possible throw, if mounting at the back of the room is not a possibility. Speakers as well can easily be under-specced, being it not big enough speakers, not big enough amplifiers behind the speakers, or there just not being enough speakers to cope with having a decent surround sound system.
Yeah. So a quick word about that actually. If you are driving an amplifier to its max to try and power some speakers, that shortens the life of the amplifier. So you don't want to have an under-specced amp for speakers. Likewise, you don't want to have an over-specced amp, because then you're at the risk of destroying your speakers that you've probably paid a good amount of money for.
So conversely, a dedicated home cinema does exactly what you want it to. It recreates that cinema experience. You have a big picture on one wall. By picture I mean the actual picture that's projected. Crisp, clear colours, fine quality, speakers all the way around, comfortable seating, and of course a control system to make everything turn on at the right time, as opposed to having like some sort of dealer. It's like, which remote would you like? You know.
I saw a really funny one actually. That these guys have created a cheap control system, which is they've taken all the remotes from all your products and hot glued them together, so you've got a one for all remote.
It's like the Rubik's Cube of remotes. So that's equipment and cinemas and backbones, i.e. networks, all covered. Quality from high to low and vice versa. What about when it comes to the actual installation, the thinking, the certain je ne sais quoi behind a system?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of a DIY system, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you doing it at home yourself and spending whatever time you have designing and installing your own home
and
cinema,
researching.
Your own control system, AV stuff. But there is a certain element that people don't really consider when they take on board experienced contractors. Is that experience. We've tried and tested so many different things. We spend a hell of a lot of time and resources just researching products and designing systems that work really well together to give ultimately the user the best experience possible.
For instance, speaker placement down to the millimetre as far as height and physical left to right arrangement goes. Maximising screen size in the given room for the allowed projection throw.
Designing that network system that is going to give them the same strength and the same speeds wherever they are in the home.
Yeah. Full coverage that comes with knowing where to place wireless access points.
And just quite simply offering people certain products they didn't know existed.
Yeah, that happens often.
So we're going to these trade shows and we're seeing brand new products come out as they come up.
You could say in some respects we are on the cutting edge of what's available AV wise, but there is always some technology that we don't even bat an eyelid at, purely because the prices are just too high. And when it comes to using certain technologies in the real world, they don't perform as well as they should do because they just haven't been around long enough.
Sure.
For instance, we had this discussion about laser projectors.
Yep.
Very expensive, very smart technology, but in a regular home cinema installation, the experience isn't great. It might be brighter, but when there's like high action scenes going on, there is some visual deterioration in the picture.
Another thing we recently spoke about was 8K, the emergence of 8K. When 4K was coming out, we also had the same conversations with our clients, and that is it's all well and good you having a 4K TV, or an 8K TV as it is now, but where is the content coming from? There is no 8K content you can watch at the moment.
It's the occasional Blu-ray, but
It's very minuscule, and the price point of these new TVs that have come out is phenomenal. Okay, if you're willing to spend that kind of money, but I guarantee by the time there's enough 8K content out there, you'll be able to afford 4 of them for the same price. You may as well wait for the content to catch up with the technology so you can actually use it.
Yeah, the very same can be said for 4K TVs. When they came out, the price of them was astonishing. Now you can buy them for the price of a regular HD TV 10 years ago. So,
where someone who was doing it themselves would maybe consider using such technologies and spending that money, maybe they would see it as an investment. If you have someone like us come in, we will advise you what's best for you in the long term. And going on about long term is support. Now an AV integrator will be able to support you beyond the installation. For example, when it comes down to warranties and replacements, if you go and buy a TV from one of these TV retailers, that's cool. However, if it goes wrong, you have to take that TV off the wall and you have to bring it back to the shop potentially, and wait for it to be repaired. You might not have the box. Whereas if you go with someone like Command AV, our distributors offer advanced replacements for many products. So what that means is we would determine that there is definitely a problem with the TV and it can't be fixed by us. The product would then, a new product would be sent out to you. We would get it installed and send the old broken one back. So the disruption from a client perspective is very minuscule compared to if you'd done it yourself. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. We've spoken a lot about the different kinds of products we do. Yeah, thanks for watching.
So in the next video, we'll be looking at the letter R, which stands for
Racks and rack rooms.
Awesome. See you then.
Bye.
See you next time.